When tragedy strikes, one of the first things many people discover is that life does not stop. The sun still rises, the bills still need to be paid, work still has to be done, the world keeps moving even when our hearts are broken. This week, our community has been carrying a deep sorrow. The tragic loss of lives here in Muscatine has left many people grieving, confused, angry, and searching for answers. Some knew the family involved, others did not. But in a community like ours, suffering ripples outward. We feel it, we carry it, we grieve together. And in moments like these, one of the questions we may ask is this: does God see us? Does God notice our pain? The gospel appointed for today offers a powerful answer. Jesus stops for people. Jesus stops for people. The gospel begins with Jesus calling Matthew, a tax collector. Most people would have walked right past Matthew. Many would have dismissed him as unworthy of attention. But Jesus sees him. Jesus stops. Jesus calls him by name and invites him into a new life. Already, we are learning something important about God. Jesus notices the people others overlook. Then the story continues. A leader approaches Jesus with an urgent request. His daughter has died. He is desperate. Jesus immediately goes with him. But on the way, something unexpected happens. A woman who has suffered from a flow of blood for 12 years reaches out and touches the fringe of Jesus' cloak. Now think about that for a moment. Jesus is already responding to an emergency. A grieving father is waiting. Time matters. There are places to go and people depending on him. But Jesus stops. He stops. He turns. He notices her. He speaks to her. He calls her daughter. The healing is important, but so is that word daughter. For 12 years, she had lived with illness, isolation, and uncertainty. In a culture that often defined people by their condition, Jesus sees her as a person. More than that, he sees her as a beloved child of God. Jesus stops for people. Jesus stops for people, and that matters because many of us know what it feels like to be overwhelmed by pain. This week has reminded us how fragile life can be. It has reminded us that suffering is not something that happens only somewhere else. It happens here. It happens to people we know. It happens to people in our community. And when tragedy strikes, it's easy to feel lost in a crowd of grief. But the gospel tells us that no one is invisible to God. Not the grieving father, not the suffering woman, not Matthew sitting at his tax booth, not the people of Muscatine carrying heavy hearts this week. Jesus stops for people. The readings from Hosea and Matthew also remind us of something else. God desires mercy, not sacrifice. In times of tragedy, there is often a temptation to seek quick answers. We want explanations. We want certainty. We want to understand why. But the gospel does not offer easy answers. Instead, it offers presence. Jesus does not explain the woman's suffering. He meets her in it. Jesus does not explain the father's grief. He walks with him through it. Jesus does not condemn Matthew for his past. He invites him into relationship. Again and again, Jesus chooses presence over distance and mercy over judgment. That is the God we meet in Jesus Christ. And that is the pattern we are called to follow. Because we cannot fix every broken heart in our community. We cannot answer every difficult question. We cannot undo what has been done. But we can stop for people. We can listen. We can pray. We can sit beside those who are grieving. We can check on our neighbors. We can choose compassion when anger would be easier. We can become signs of God's mercy in a hurting world. That is part of what it means to be the church. And here at Trinity, we often speak about making Christ known with love and compassion. This week, those words feel especially important. We make Christ known not only through what we believe, but through how we show up for one another. Because that is what Jesus does. Jesus, he shows up. He stops. He notices. He listens. He heals. And even when death itself appears to have the final word, Jesus continues walking toward life. And that is where today's gospel ends. The girl is restored. Hope emerges where grief had settled in. Life appears where people expected only loss. The tragedy in our community is carrying, that our community is carrying this week, that's real. The grief is real. The questions, they are real. But the gospel reminds us that God's presence is real too. Jesus still stops for people. Jesus still walks alongside the grieving. Jesus still calls people by name. And Jesus still brings hope into places that seem overcome by despair. And Jesus still calls us to do the same. So this week, may we trust that Christ sees us in our sorrow. May we be willing to stop for others as Christ has stopped for us. And may we become a people through whom God's mercy and God's compassion and God's healing are made known in Muscatine and beyond. Amen.